Sure. Hi, and welcome to the Nitty Gritty Writing Podcast. I'm Simon Cantan.
And I'm Dave Higgins.
And this week we're going to be talking about writing with passion. But before we do that, we'll do our usual roundup, which will be for a fortnight this time, since I was gone last time.
Yep. So 2 episodes of Seven Stones from me. And I've had someone commission me to format 4 ebooks for them. So that's been great from a business perspective, but it's taking up a little bit of time that I'd otherwise use for my own writing. So I've got less done there. And the end of a short story I've been working on has been niggling at me. It's not quite coming together. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about it, trying to work out how to unravel it so it works, but not a lot of time actually writing the words. So it's been a bit of a staring at the screen kind of a fortnight for me, rather than a utterly creative one, but still reasonable.
Cool. For me, I finished editing Fields of Dust. So that's now going to go for beta reading as soon as I fix the beta reading system. And it seemed to turn out pretty well, I think. I've already in writing Fields of Dust, I've been doing the Chris Fox thing of leaving an open question. So the open question will be answered then in a quick read, like a short story, basically, which will only be available to the mailing list. But it's not like an essential. You can read the rest of the books without reading this, but hopefully it's enough of a question that people want answered. So it's something we did before on Green Star, where we would have, in one season, Connor was off doing something else. And we said, hey, do you want to find out what happened to Connor while he was off doing something else? Join our mailing list. I should check the statistics, actually, but not right now, to see how many people we get. Like a trickle of people joining our mailing list, so maybe some of them are joining for that reason. At the very least, like, it's a short story, is not too arduous to write. And I've also been working on the beta reading system, trying to get that up and running. So I made the whole system in a different language before, and now making it in a new language. And the issue is that when you make a system, there's lots of things you don't even think about when you use a system, like a login page, or editing your profile, or that kind of stuff. The stuff that's just, in every system is just the same, but someone has to make it. So that's all the stuff that I have to make with the new language in order that the system will then work. Once that's done, then I can start doing all the exciting stuff. I've already got a beta reading thingy up that adjusts. So if I scale my browser, it adjusts the reading size, and I've got zooming. I know that sounds like a very basic thing to have on a reader, but zooming's quite tricky as well. So that's it for writing, pretty much. I have a ton of stuff on my list. Oh, one thing I could mention is, as a motivational tool, I've started printing out my covers for the upcoming books, and cutting them out and tacking them onto the wall just in front of my desk. So then I can see all the things. So right here, I can see all the books that I have planned for this year, just as a kind of a extra motivation to go, okay. Because when I printed them all out, there's 6 titles up there. There's another one coming, but I don't have a cover for it yet. So that's 7 titles. 3 of them actually are short stories, but that's pretty good for a year. 7 different things, plus a software system. So yeah, get on to the topic. So writing with passion. I think there's kind of two categories of that. There's the project or the story that you come up with the idea for it, and you really, really, really want to write it, and then you launch into it and just zip through the whole thing. And there's maybe there's three categories. There's the one that you're really enthusiastic about, but then after a couple of pages or a chapter, you realize, oh, there's not actually that much depth to this idea. And you start kind of running out of passion because it doesn't write itself the way the ones in the first category would. And the third would be things that you have to write, particularly sequels in a series, that you're not necessarily 100% passionate about, but is in order to get the series going, keep going with the series, you need to actually write it. So you need to find passion for that. Because if you write without any passion at all, it's just going to be a slog both for you and for the reader, I think.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts, Dave?
Things that write themselves, I don't know if you need passion for that. I find it's over too quickly for me to think about what my mental state was. So passion for me comes in with that, where I is a feeling of wanting to finish the book rather than actually doing it. So so gravelly at the moment. So I think it's definitely, though, finding passion when you need to do something can be hard. So, putting up pictures of your previous books probably works. It reminds you that you have got through the difficult bits before.
Yeah, I mean, I have future books because I'm envisioning. So I've got, I don't know if you can see, there's my vanity shelf behind me, just the one there. So having the future books is kind of my look. If you write this and you do a good job, then you get to put another book on that vanity shelf. At the moment, it's only a cover because the book isn't finished, but one day it'll be a paperback. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different places to kind of find passion as well. So as I say, you can find it in the fact that you're writing something that you really, really want to get down. And like, I think there's a few different books. The Bite of Rust, I always name, that's a book I had wanted to write for a long time, which I always think is like The Horse and His Boy in the Narnia series. So The Horse and His Boy is a complete side story. No, you don't need to read it. You could read all the other Narnia books, which are kind of a continuous story. But The Horse and His Boy is kind of a side thing that doesn't really have any bearing on the rest of the stories. And The Bite of Rust, similarly, doesn't have any bearing. It's backstory for one of the characters is in the rest of the books, but if you didn't have it, you could get away with it. You wouldn't need to read it to read the rest. But that was something I was passionate about, so then became really easy to write, and then is one of the highest, the one I get the most positive feedback from readers as well. But then so Blood Cruel, for instance, would be a good example of trying to find the passion. So that's where I said I was going to join a bundle where everyone's writing urban fantasy, and I'm not into urban fantasy in like Twilight kind of urban fantasy. So I was going, well, am I going to write this? Am I going to write a Twilight clone when I don't actually like Twilight clones? That'd be kind of stupid, because I wouldn't enjoy writing it, and no, the people who read the Twilight stuff would go, this doesn't have the stuff that I want to read. So then I thought about it for a while. I went, well, you could write a vampire book where the vampires are actually evil and kill people. They're not lovey-dovey and sparkle. like 30 Days a Night, or even Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but then Buffy did have romancy vampires at some stages. So that kind of thing. So that way you kind of look at the thing that you have to write, or the thing that you should write, and find an angle on it that means that you'll then have some passion about it. But I think the key, I don't think either of us disagree with, is that you have to have some passion for the thing you're writing, or why are you even writing it?
Yeah. I think sort of that some people do say about writing to market that you just whack out a book to a formula, get it out there really quickly, people will buy it, and the amount of effort you put in means that the amount you get out, even if it's not a great book, is enough to cover that effort. So you just keep slogging out the books, right under maybe 6 or 7 pen names, just keep whacking them out and don't care, just to follow your formula. And well, whilst I can see as a productivity model, you might be able to make money. And one of the reasons I write rather than scrubbing toilets is because I actually enjoy it. It's not a pure money-making job for me. So I think I need to somewhat enjoy it, the writing. So trying to write something I don't enjoy in the hopes that I can write it really quickly, get it out there, and start making enough money to cover the time I spent. And it's I'd say a 2 characters type thing. Some people will be able to do that, and if that's what they want to do, that's fine. And there are some things that I've written really quickly that turned out to be good. So writing something, getting it out there really quickly isn't an issue. And I do an episode of 7 Stones a week. So potentially I could write not a full-length story to that quality maybe, but I could write individual stories, maybe write a story a month. If I didn't do 7 Stones, if I did that instead. But I write 7 Stones every week for sort of years because I like the story. If it was really, there's no way I'd have written 80 odd episodes of it, 1 a week, only pausing for like statutory holidays, if I wasn't in love with the world.
Yeah, I mean, the reason, so I wrote in my Bitter End fantasy series, I stopped at 6 books. And that's because I could tell that I would get bored of, so I like world building and coming up with new stories and things like that. So then if I kept writing Bitter End forever, I would get very bored of it and wouldn't want to write anymore. So that's down to the individual writer as well. I mean, Terry Pratchett wrote Ankh-Morpork stories forever. And that's perfectly fine because that's what he wanted to do. But for me, if I didn't keep changing up the series, then I would lose all passion for it. I wouldn't be interested in, oh, I need to go back to this again. And there's a mix of things there because obviously you know the characters, then you know the world, and hopefully you're invested in it if you've written a series. But you need to keep things fresh, or what's the point of writing? As you say, you could scrub toilets or whatever job which would earn decent money and be less risk and all that kind of stuff. So there needs to be something there. It needs to be some kind of magic to the whole process, or what's the point in writing? At the same time, as you say, like if someone's writing to market because they can earn more money than if they were doing a normal job, or they get enough of they enjoy it enough that it's better than doing an office job. That's fine too. To each their own, of course. and their passion would be the paycheck. So I was thinking, so some people, when they aren't selling very much, which I'm not particularly selling huge amounts of books, they then look into learning marketing and fixing covers and fixing product descriptions. I'm doing some of that, obviously. But then the software I'm making is a beta reading piece of software, because I'm thinking, okay, well then the contents of the books need to be better, in a way that, you know, that the readers read them and go, this is the best book ever, I need to tell all my friends. That would be my focus, and that would be where I would get a lot of motivation out of. If someone says this is the best book I've ever read, that's more motivation maybe to me than a number of sales. At the same time, I wouldn't turn down thousands of dollars every month in sales. That's its own kind of compliment.
I think potentially there's a balance in there. Because I get a reasonable number of people say they enjoy other things that I do, but they aren't really at all marketable. That people like my book reviews, but my chances of making money out of writing books are probably greater than my chances of making money out of writing book reviews.
Yeah, I mean, there was people complaining about Huffington Post, and that's obviously professional level reviews, which I think you actually could write professional reviews, but that the Huffington Post doesn't pay its contributors. So that's a major website that doesn't even pay people to write movie reviews and book reviews and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So even they're taking the money and pocketing it. But you know, the chances of a book reviewer making money is fairly slim in this day and age, without any newspapers or anything to support it. And people tend to prefer reviews on aggregate as well anyway, so yeah. So yeah. So another source of passion perhaps is reading, which we mention quite often, but that reading something that's seriously good can be a great source of motivation and passion for your own work then. Like I think reading something that's only so-so can hurt your motivation in some way, especially if it's a bestseller or whatever, because you go, well, you can write an average story and it can be a bestseller, so why bother too much?
Yeah.
Whereas if you read things that are really great, and not necessarily like I was talking to my father today, and he was saying, well, there's nothing in your books. You can see I've got lots of books here, but they're all lasers and dragons. There's nothing here I can read, because he didn't bring a book over from Ireland on this trip. I said, yeah, I guess not, if you want, you know, crime or real life stuff. There isn't really. But for me, read a seriously good book can be one with lasers and dragons. For someone else, it may not be. But you need to find the books that you really, really like, and use them to motivate you as well, to go, well, this is the kind of great stuff that I could write if I just push myself a bit. Speaking, this is a complete aside, but speaking of you might see this Night Watch just there. The 6th book just came out in that series. The paperback is £10 sterling, and the ebook is 16. So I went, oh, like I want to read that book. I don't want the paperback. I want the ebook, but £16 for a ebook, or whatever it was, $20-something. That's ludicrous.
That's a lot.
Anyway, that's complete aside. So yeah, I don't know whether we kind of covered writing with passion. Make it a very short podcast, I guess.
Well, And one perspective that I thought of is that you've got, I think, it's easier to write with passion if you learn to see separate things about a book, which I learned from reviewing and reading a lot. Because lots of people give up on books because they don't like a character, or they don't like this one thing about it. So they're really enjoying the world, but they don't like a supporting character, so they'll give up on the book. Whereas I'll carry on reading a book if I like one of the character arc, the world, and the style of the prose, usually. So it takes a lot of failures to get me to give up on reading a book. So for finding passion for my own work, you can take the same perspective, that it doesn't have to all work straight, particularly with first drafts, second drafts, and so on, until it's actually published. Some of that can be bad. So if I'm bogging down, if I can find the thing about it that I'm still loving. So if I created the story because I had an idea for a really great world, possibly that's what I did. Go back to that world, which is still the world of the story. And then if I love the world, I can learn to love the story again, even if it's a bit of a grind. Or if I really like the character, I can like the character enough that it can get me over the hump of the fact that this particular bit of the story isn't working, because the character's going to be there after I've done it. So if I can just get through this bit. So possibly it's eyes on the prize, only recognizing there's more than one prize about it.
And I think everyone has bits of writing that they don't enjoy, that they need to get over in order to get to the next bit. So a lot of people say fight scenes, they don't like writing fight scenes, whereas I'm fine with fight scenes. I don't mind writing that. Or, you know, all the kind of setup. So one thing I found that helps with the setup is not knowing what's going to happen yourself, but that's a technique kind of thing, which I think I mentioned before, that I'm only outlining bits. So for Fields of Dust, I had no idea what was going to happen at certain points in the story. That kind of helps with motivation and passion as well, because then, so when I first plan out a story, if I plan out the whole thing, I'll come up with clever twists and turns and things like that. And then that's motivating me to start writing the story. But then after 15, 20, 30,000 words, that kind of excitement of telling those twists is gone. Whereas if I'm only outlining 10,000 words and then writing that and then outlining the next, and I'm coming up with twists as I go, well, then it's fairly recently that I have the twists in my head that I need to tell people, that I want people to discover. So that helps too. But as you say, there's always some points where you just have to slog through it and realize that the character's going to be there afterwards. And if you like the character, then you just have to get through that bit. Yeah. I don't know. I've run out of ideas.
Yeah. Which is ironic, really, that we can't get passionate about the subject of getting passionate.
Well, I don't know. I think we kind of covered the things. Like, it's very difficult. We've talked before about motivation and staying motivated and things like that. Yeah. So I'm just aware of just repeating what we said on a previous podcast, because you can go and watch or listen to that one to kind of get the same thing. I don't want to just regurgitate the same points again. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss? We could talk about. One thing we could talk about is different marketing strategies that we've been discussing off air, just in general terms. We don't need to talk about particular projects, but so for example, we've talked about it before, but the fact that we wrote Origin as quite a short book, and then to kind of as a very, in terms of how much time and effort it takes to write it, to as a quick launch tool. Or if you want, it's okay. I know your throat is hurting. We can just cut it short. We don't need to go on.
My throat is a bit rough.
Yeah, that's okay. We don't need to. We can just keep to what we said we were going to talk about. So in that case, we might just cut it short there. I see we have one viewer, so hello, whoever you are, and we'll see you next week to talk about something else. Bye, everyone.